What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we are here with Alex of 100,000. Thank you for being here today, man. It's great to have you here.
Hey, Alex, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all. We got this brand new album, Zodiac, out now. This record is truly breathtaking, really badass, and really, it's not the first time bands have used astrology, but within their sound, but like I really think that you guys just hit the nail on the head. Was this like a concept that 100,000 always wanted to explore before, incorporating astrology and, the zodiac signs into their albums?
Well, first of all, thank you for the compliments, man. I really appreciate that. That's awesome to hear. So actually, funny enough, it should have been. It wasn't originally. When we came up with the name 100,000, we wanted something that was kind of, didn't have a specific it didn't place you in any one genre. That was kind of one of our big things. We didn't want a name that kind of placed us in one genre. There's a lot, and actually when we were coming up with it, our bass player Andrew, he found out there's a lot of significance of 100,000 in terms of like certain measurements in the universe and space. Like it's a number that holds a lot of weight to it too, so it kind of is big and grandiose in a universal aspect. But it really wasn't until we had been writing a little bit of the record. We probably had a couple songs done and some riffs here or there. And Kurt, our drummer, had the idea of, what if we maybe kind of tied this into a Zodiac thing? And we were, in this beautiful space writing this record in this home on this lake. And we were starting the process of writing this record. And it was, we kind of just started thinking that maybe a couple of the songs that we had kind of reference certain signs, and it kind of started to naturally fall into place. And then we started writing a little bit more intensively, which we were with more intent, so to say. So, which was really cool and a little bit different for us. So, once we kind of had that and looking at stuff like Virgo and Pisces and what might that sound like and stuff like, so it kind of it wasn't our starting point, but it quickly became kind of the reference point for doing the record.
It's funny you mentioned that, and I like what you said going to the band name to 100,000, because I feel like the best way to make sure that your band doesn't get pigeonholed is to either have your band either has to have a number, or it has to be named after a geographical location like Kansas or
Right.
Boston or Chicago. And then, you have some 41, Blink 182, but you also have 1349. So, like, I feel like
Yeah.
numbers or geographical locations are always the best way for your band name to not be pigeonholed.
100%. Yeah, we didn't want to do like the verb the noun thing or anything. But yeah, it was very nondescript, and we also kind of like, I don't know, we're not really using it so much more, but when we first started, the Roman numeral for 100,000 was like a C with like a line over it, which was kind of cool, and that was a neat little kind of graphic to be able to incorporate. And but yeah, it was kind of like, we're all very into not necessarily astrology. Like, I don't think any of us really pay that much close attention to it, but we love space and the signs and all that stuff. So we're big fans of all that.
Having this concept, because when an album has sort of like a concept behind it, it does determine the lyricism. Obviously, we've seen it in Mastodon, we've seen it in Fear Factory, we've seen it in Yob. But like, do you feel that for your playing and just for the musicians in general, that this concept also influenced the sound of the music as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was, I think, when we did our last record, Forms in Which They Appear, it was very much, hey, this is a cool riff I have, this is a cool idea, or hey, what do you think of this chorus? Can we build something off this? Like, in this, when we after the first couple songs, and we then came up with the concept, it was a really refreshing way to write. For instance, we were kind of paying attention a little bit more to like the negative aspects, I guess, of the signs, so to speak. So, for instance, something like Virgo, they're supposed to be self-analyzing to the point of fault, always kind of, looking in the mirror until things just break down. And so that chord progression, that chord progression doesn't change the whole song. It's the same chord progression, and really everything on top of it kind of makes, all the movement in the song. And it just repeats and gets darker and bigger, and then finally just crashes into chaos. But, so that was one where, the aspect of that sign kind of absolutely, you know, was a marriage with kind of the writing of it, and came together really well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I forgot what band. I think it was Ulver. It was either Ulver or Scamish or some
Hmm.
album that came out in 2015 or 16 that you and the album title was just the first letter of every zodiac sign.
Oh,
And
cool, cool.
yeah, and it's always fascinating because like some people think that the astrology is kind of like a religion. It's BS, or like, or not a religion so much, but like a superstition, I should say.
Right,
But
sure.
I will point out that every Virgo I know, every Scorpio I know, every Cancer I know, like just all have the same sort of stereotypes that follow along with it.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, even like I'm a Gemini, so like Gemini is one that like is one, you know, like I'm always, you know, we have trouble finishing things a lot, and that song was actually like tough to figure out like how to actually end. I kept that one was one of the ones that I struggled with figuring out whether it was actually done or not for the longest time. So, yeah, I did feel eerily in some ways that the signs like almost like, again, I'm not someone who like believes in it so much, but doing it and being involved with it so much, I kind of started feeling a little more like, wow, these things kind of do rear their heads a little bit more, and I do see these things and aspects in you know, people, and became sometimes hit a little too close to home.
Is it fair to say that every member of the band, maybe like their favorite song on the album, or their the song that they have the easiest time playing, or the song that they resonate with the most, is the song that's their actual sign?
Um, Probably not, because my the hardest song for me to play on the record is Gemini. It's the one that's like I love that song, and it kills my hand to play, and is a pain. So it's actually my least favorite one to actually perform on the record. But as for everybody else, like, yeah, I do think I, you know, I don't know. It's funny. Like, I find myself going back and forth between which is, you know, my favorite song. I think for me in particular, probably Cancer and Virgo are up there for me. They're two of, you know, they're very emotional, and a little bit more heady in some ways than some of the other ones. You know, they're not as heavy, you know, as something like Taurus or Scorpio, you know, but I know they just really like take me to a place, and I find, you know, when I'm listening to them that I really, those are two that I feel like really embody um, kind of the signs, you know, and the aspects of them.
Has 100,000's music always been as conceptual in albums, such as like the forms in which they appear or previous releases, or was Zodiac really the first time where it was more than just about the music, but it was kind of like a sort of subject matter?
This is definitely the first time. I mean, we Kurt and I had been in a band before we started 100,000 called Westgate, and when we did the first record, forms in which they appear, like a couple of those songs were had been born out of stuff that we had been planning on doing with Westgate. You know, so it was definitely not super conceptualized. You know, definitely more of like, hey, this is just a cool idea, and you know, still trying to do it within whatever our sound was. But I think coupled with this intention with the record, also with bringing in Greg as our second guitarist a few years back, like really kind of helped solidify our sound. And while I don't think that we're going to become a concept record band, like not everything is going to be like that per se. I think us having even if it's just internally and behind the scenes, having a concept in mind in terms of writing is probably something that we're going to continue to do.
Yeah, and had it not been for the song titles of each astrology symbol, but like, Zodiac, that term is just so vague in itself at this point. You're like, oh, could it
Hmm.
be a concept about the Zodiac killer? Could it be a
Right.
concept about, whatever? So I feel like that, with Zodiac, it's definitely an album about astrology. There's no questions asked, but like, I feel like it's still fairly open to interpretation, at least upon first listening to it. And the music is easy to get lost in as well, too. So.
Yeah, I think you know, even separated from just the you know, the songs themselves representing certain signs, I think one of the things that I came away with doing the record was that um really I feel like there's a little bit of all these signs in everybody. You know, these are human characteristics, these are human traits, and people display them some more than others. And I feel like this record from top to bottom is like a life journey. It's got the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, the sadness, the fears, the anger, the excitement of life, and I don't know, riding a lot of those emotions in 2020. And, I felt, very, very hand in hand as a record with kind of the last year and kind of the wild range of emotions that everyone was experiencing.
Do you think that, like, musically too, that this opened up more doors? Like, did you discover things about you yourself as a guitar player, like, whether it is, in terms of technique or effects or, just instrumentation, that you would not have discovered had you not explored this?
Yeah, absolutely. We played around with some new tunings a little bit. I think as growing older as a guitarist, and again, not that we're not trying to be technical when it comes time to have something that's really needs to be in your face or crazy, like we're down to do it. But I think as I'm maturing as a songwriter, not having, I guess before there would be a lot of times we're like, oh, what's like the sickest riff, or like what's the hardest thing like that we could play, or how can I make this more challenging to show other people that, like, how good we are or something like that. And like, if it fits naturally, that's cool. But I think like learning a lot more just about songwriting and try to make the songs feel good and make every part be the right part, not remove any ego from it, and just write the best music and try to create the best song that we can.
Do you have the whole theory thing going on for you? Like, do you know, like, what scale or mode that you're working off of, or?
Yeah. Kurt and I, I'm a music director at Architect Music, and I'm do a lot of teaching with that. And while I didn't go to school for music, I've learned a lot, and especially from Kurt too, who is classically trained and has his degree in music. So he, early on writing with him for 10 years, I've learned a lot more about theory. So while I say it's not like we're not like picking in a particular mode or scale to like write in, but like I do find, like, I mean, I love stuff that's in Lydian, and I love writing in 7. Those are things that kind of like naturally come to me a little bit. So I can having that, I think, is having the theory, I think, is good. But I never base the songwriting off of that. It's way more about vibe and emotion. And then if I can use the theory to move in a direction or help me get out of a spot or explain it to somebody else, then that's kind of where it comes.
So like handy. You know it and you have it at your disposal, but it's not like you're enslaved to it, or that you're really, like, you're not like a theory Nazi, as I like to say, because there's some people...
Yeah, no, not at all. I'm not like saying, man, we have, we need to write a song that is in this mode and we need to have that, or, definitely not. But it's like, if we're in this key, for a bridge, maybe we could move into this. Yeah, having that as, in your back pocket, I guess, is super. And I guess kind of subconsciously it bleeds into your playing. But definitely, especially with this, it was way more about just the atmosphere and the vibes and the emotions, and trying to figure out what the right vibe is for each of these songs. Something like Scorpio, kind of with like a scorpion, and I wanted it to be kind of sharp and biting a little bit, so I chose kind of a little bit more. I mean, it probably plays around with a couple, either like probably like harmonic minor, a little bit, and a little bit of like Phrygian dominant kind of things, and these riffs that are a little more, biting, sounding and stuff like that. But, that's really like kind of the extent of that thought process for me, at least.
Make that the next concept for the album. Every song is a different, like, so this is the Mixolydian, this is the Locrian.
Yeah, exactly. Like a whole, all the modes, represented. That could be super sweet, and that would be like fun to write like a metal song in like Mixolydian or something like that. Like,
it'll be the most educational song, that'll be the most educational metal album ever.
Yes, yeah, and like do it so that like people are learning without knowing that they're learning all this stuff.
Yeah,
it's almost like I think it's like The Root of All Evil by Dream Theater, where every song is in like a different key. I think it's like starts in C and then it like just moves up.
Yeah, Well,
But
I mean, with Dream Theater, I mean, they're like one of those bands where you know that that's off of 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, or that's off of, The
oh yeah.
Astonishing. Like, especially with their last album, they pushed boundaries even farther with it. So, like, Dream Theater is like one of those bands where you're never going to know what to expect. There's elements that tie all the albums together, but then there's elements that every album has on their own.
Yeah, and being huge fans of them, especially when I was a little bit younger too. Wanted to make this record, especially with some of the production stuff and with Shane Stanton, who co-produced and engineered and mixed it with us. Just a lot of ideas on how to make this thing flow as a record. Once we had the songs, how do we make this song transition into this song really comfortably, and also in a way, to kind of, from 6 Degrees and some of their other records, like having it so that the end of it kind of falls back into the beginning, because again, this whole record kind of represents like the life cycle and also a year cycle, the things that you go through in a year, and these things repeat and are very cyclical. So that was something that was very intentional with the producing of this record, and kind of making it all, once the songs were written, making it into an experience, that you could listen to for 72 minutes and be on this journey, especially being very big into film and soundtrack and the way that ties in. Not that it's like super cinematic per se, but that was definitely heavy on my mind, is creating, once the song's over, how do we get that transitioning into this next song? How do we make this feel like a journey?
Yeah, because that, I feel like, is like and I mean this is a compliment, but like I feel like this is something that's kind of difficult about the album for at least some average listeners to digest, because Capricorn is like just under the 10-minute mark. Some people are fairly like intimidated by longer songs, but like I feel like I don't know if you feel comfortable with this pigeonhole, but I definitely call this album definitely progressive metal, like without a doubt. Like I
Sure.
saw a lot of, like, the first band that I like thought of when hearing this was Tesseract. It was kind of like
Oh, cool. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, absolutely. We're big fans of Tesseract.
I can
Big
tell.
fans of Deftones, Meshuggah, Tool, Seven Dust. We really run the Carnival. So those guys are all big inspirations for us. But we really try to, do our own spin on it. And try to, not, take those influences and kind of turn them into something that we are doing something unique.
Yeah, and you definitely have your own spin on it as well.
Thank you. Yeah, and there are definitely some long songs, and that was, that's something that we kind of like loosely discussed, but we were all pretty adamant that we wanted to write a record that felt great and felt right to us, and that we did the signs justice to us, and that there were songs that we loved and wanted to play. And sometimes that was just an in and out, like a Taurus. It was like we started writing Taurus, and it was like, yeah, this just needs to be a banger, just boom, in and out. And we had the riffs, and that thing just kind of snowballed. And
Why was
Cancer,
Capricorn
or sorry, Capricorn was one where we had the chorus for a while, and then Kurt came up with this cool intro, and it started feeling like this journey, which Capricorn is, and it just, like, all the parts just kind of kept going and felt very natural. And then at the end of that song, it was like, whoa, this is almost 10 minutes, but when we play it, like, we barely feel it. It's like it goes by in a second. So
yeah. It's like, why is Capricorn
we didn't want
the
to ever
longest?
do anything on too much on purpose, but like just naturally, however they came out.
As a Virgo myself, I feel like you should have made Virgo the most depressing song on the album.
I mean, would that be interesting? Does it feel, because when we first wrote it, the first thing I showed it to a couple people, and they were like, this song makes me feel really uncomfortable. Like, it makes me feel down.
Yeah, is this
good.
Is
I
this
was like,
is this
okay.
is this album a vendetta against Virgos? That I'm putting on.
No, certainly not. But yeah, like when I heard that, I was like, okay, perfect. Like that's what I want you to feel something. Like, even if it's not making you feel good, if it's making you feel something, that's what I want. And I think Virgo definitely is a depressing track lyrically, and that whole ending, just descending into chaos. Just really, like, that's a point in the record where, like, things are kind of crashing down and falling apart.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, as a Virgo, I took a little offense to this album, but that's art. It's not always supposed to be.
That's I made you feel something. So that was the goal.
Yeah. Well, in that case, let's wrap up this interview. No, well, actually, that is all my questions that I have.
I'll just go fuck myself. You know,
Yeah.
I'll just.
Yeah. But before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today, and thanks for a great discussion. I never really get to discuss like astrology with an artist, so this was a great new thing to
Oh,
do.
thank you, man.
Yeah. Is there just something, other things going on with 100,000 that you want to promote in terms of like new music that you guys are currently exploring, or anything else you'd like to plug?
Yeah, so well, actually, we're going to be doing like a little tie-in song off the back of Zodiac. So in certain circles, there's a 13th sign, that's that is supposed to exist, which is called Ophiuchus. Spelled really weird. But
Sounds painful.
so we actually kind of we have a song that we're going to be going in and recording later this month at the end of April. We're going to be going into the studio and recording just a one-off track, Ophiuchus, which is just going to be a cool little single. We'll probably release that in the summertime and be kind of a tie-in off of Zodiac, and as we kind of get into new stuff, which is kind of what we're starting to do now that the record's done. While we're patiently awaiting for the reality of playing shows to come back, we're just starting to write, and trying to figure out what the next iteration of this is, and try to write some new stuff, and
maybe write an album on the different strains of this godforsaken virus and see what that.
Yes, yeah, right. There's so many concepts that we could go for. So yeah, we'll see. I think again, I don't know if we're going to be doing like concept albums, but like I think internally we really enjoyed the experience of having an idea of writing for this, and not that we'll name it that again, but that like I think having that internal direction was really cool and unique, and I think we're just looking to experiment with some new stuff, maybe bring in some new tunings, some new effects. We definitely don't want to repeat what we did with Zodiac. Zodiac is awesome, and it stands on its own, but we don't want to just release another record that's exactly like that. So I think it's going to be something different.
Yeah, you definitely gotta different concepts or different ideas always have to call for different sounds, and I do consider this album to be lightning in a bottle. So don't give maybe.
Yeah, no, it's not even something like it's almost like I was there and recorded it and wrote it, but it's like when I look back on it, I'm like, man, like it almost feels like divinely guided in a way between how smooth all the songs came out, and how good it feels as a top down listen, and with it coupling with the quarantine last year and being able to release a song a month, and it like eerily kind of paralleled some of the things that were going on in the world, each track every month. So it was a wild experience, and I think one that we're very excited about, the future of, what's next, and going to try to ride this exciting wave and write something even better.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alex. Everybody, we are here.
Alex, thank you, man.
Yeah, everybody, we are here with Alex of 100,000. Pick up Zodiac if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.